Hello and welcome back to the Cronecast at the Rising Moon. My name is Elaine, and on this channel I do weekly spirit guide reads called the Spirit Guide Weekly Divine Guidance. I also do yes and no tarot. I do active magic, candle magic tarot, but today I'm not doing any type of tarot card reading. What I'm doing is talking about the terminology used in tarot card readings to try and clear up some misconceptions. And the reason I decided to do this video was I was watching a TikTok video the other day and I had encountered this message on multiple fronts about what it is to love yourself. The phrase that gets used a lot for people who are hopeful for a relationship is you have to love yourself first. And at some point in the last year or so, that got turned into please stop shaming people for their struggles and telling them that they are not, being a person correctly and that they have to be alone until such time as they learn how to person. That's not what that means. There's a couple of things that are out there that get used over and over again as catchphrases to try and condense an idea, and the meaning has been misconstrued because it isn't ever explained. So I'm here today to explain a couple of things that show up in readings that you might have heard in the past, including codependency, how do we heal from it, and what it is. That's going to be a little bit later. I'm going to start out by talking about the concept of what it means to love yourself and why you're being told that in love readings. I do have a couple of card decks here to act as basically reminders. I never use a script. I actually just am always speaking off the cuff. So I'm going to get started here, but before I do, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. Hey guys, I'm not turning on commercials for this particular video, and it is because I just might swear. And I also might be using a couple of stories from clients. Any client that I mention I have spoken to and I have asked their permission to talk about, not in great detail, but the circumstances surrounding some relationship problems that they ran into. So if you hear me referencing a client, I have asked them before I started this video if it was okay if I talk about them. So let's get started. So what does it mean when a reader tells you, and you're like, when's my person coming back? When's my next relationship? And you get that maddening hermit card, you get that, you're being asked to spend some time alone. You need to love yourself first. And it's the last thing the person asking wants to hear. Because if you were all joyful about being single, you likely wouldn't be looking for a relationship read. You wouldn't be looking for a when's my next relationship, who will I marry, or what does my crush think about me read. But it does not mean that you're being told until such time as you are perfect, you have to be alone. It has nothing to do with whether or not you are being allowed to have a relationship. What you're being advised to do is to recognize your worth. When that comes up in a reading, all that you have to love yourself first means is that, unfortunately, until such time as we do love ourselves, recognize our own value, we have a tendency to accept unacceptable behaviors from the partners that we allow into our lives. And that's all that means. That's all it means, is when you're being asked to love yourself first, it is to look at the quality of the relationships you've had in the past, why they may not have worked out, and this is without judgment of self, and mostly without judgment of others as well. It's to find what you need to heal. You're not being told that you're doing something wrong or that you're broken when you're told you need to love yourself first. It's not about an inability or not putting in enough effort of self. It is about having retained a formative wound. Usually these are the wounds from childhood. Everybody retains them. No matter what your parents were like, you have formative wounds. Some of us, and if you were drawn to me as a reader, you likely did not have a good childhood. I had a terrible childhood. It's part of the reason, and I'm fine, but it took a while. Part of the reason my collective has a tendency to be very powerful empaths, developing psychics, people who are able to do magic, is because like energy attracts like energy. So you are drawn to a reader with a particular energy signature that you resonate with. We're basically all big radios looking for the right frequency. So back to the concept of what it means to you have to love yourself first. It does not mean that you don't love yourself adequately. A lot of people, when they're told that, say, I love myself just plenty. I love myself enough that I don't want to be alone. Here's the thing. If you look to another person to make up the picture of what your life will be when it is happy, it means that you're not happy as you are yet. And if you love yourself, if you value yourself, if you see yourself as worthwhile, a person who is worthy of receiving as well as giving, then you have a tendency to be happy in your own company. And that's all loving yourself is about. It is not being put into a giant penalty box in the sky until such time as you achieve some level of self-actualization. It's just a reminder that when you love yourself, you will want not just a relationship, but the right relationship. And until the right relationship comes along, you won't allow somebody to basically have a big part of you until such time as they earn it. That's it. That's all that means. You can still date, you can still want a relationship, and needing a relationship is where the real problem comes in, where I cannot be happy unless I have a relationship. That is a sign of codependency. Codependency, I beg of you, listen, is not an insult. It's not. First of all, women, and I'm not trying to be gendered, but in a world where most of the power structures are patriarchal, women are basically told from the time they are quite small that they will find a person who will complete them, and that is how they express their power. By being a wife, by being a mother, we're still allowed to have professional achievements, but unless we're doing that part of the world as well, we're considered to not be living up to our full potential within our society. That's a bit of a fallacy. You don't have to get married. You can get married and have kids, but you don't have to basically realize your full potential in the world. A patriarchal society tells a woman that she needs to have a partner to have a strong voice in this society. So kind of disregarding that for a moment, there is not one thing wrong with wanting to be married. There is not one thing wrong with wanting to be in love. There is not even one thing wrong with hoping to have a family or to continue on after a breakup. Wrong is off the table here. However, if you want it to the exclusion of enjoying your own company, if you're unable to find a way to be happy and thriving within your own life at this particular time without a partner, what that means is that when somebody enters your life, and we all react to love as a drug because it causes euphoria, it means that you will mistake the quality of happiness within you as having something to do with that person. And it's not. Your feelings will always be your own. They will be unique and individual and within your own personal universe. No one is truly creating a feeling for you. You are reacting to a situation with a feeling. If you only feel truly happy when you're in love with somebody, it's not about not being worthy. This is a very hard thing to figure out how to phrase. If you can only be happy when you're with somebody, it means that you're not happy when you're with yourself. If you can only be happy in a relationship, it means that you are looking to an exterior individual for your personal happiness. And that gives somebody a lot of power over you, and then B, realistically, it can't last. You will simply eventually realize the quality of my life, the quality of my soul, the quality of my inner world was not really changed by this individual. And you will likely go from relationship to relationship to relationship, looking for that exterior validation, that exterior source of what, if you can find it within, the ability to understand that you are whatever your personal attributes are, kind, funny, giving, generous, beautiful, there are patient, there are so many wonderful attributes that you can start naming about yourself that would make you understand that somebody who is entering your life needs to be truly worthy. And all that does is it makes it easier to kind of filter out the people who aren't. People who are in separation, sometimes they're twin flames, but sometimes they're on the receiving end of a toxic relationship dynamic in which they're willing to accept basically poor treatment as part of a relationship. And that is a recipe for a lot of dysfunction and a lot of unhappiness. So self-love is simply having a standard for the way you will be treated in a relationship. And if somebody won't meet that, doesn't meet that, or exhibits traits that aren't in alignment with that, then you would rather be by yourself than be with that person. That's what self-love is. It has nothing to do with being solitary. It has nothing to do with being solitary. You can hear that and continue to want to date. You can continue to reach out. It is the difference between wanting and needing. So when you're being told you have to love yourself first of all, imperfect language alert, whenever a reader tells you you have to do something, you do not have to do anything. It is the guidance and the advice that you are receiving, both from an individual in this realm, but also ideally a reader is delivering messages from your guides. You are being asked to examine your relationship to yourself solely so that it can improve your quality of life, and also so that it can improve the quality of the relationships you will accept into that life. And that's literally all that means. Self-love has nothing to do with needing to be single. So if a reader ever is giving you a relationship read and you're saying, when am I going to meet somebody? And they look down at the cards and they're saying, you have to love yourself first. It doesn't mean you can't have a relationship before you love yourself. What it means is, until such time as you have the relationship with yourself that you want to have with another person, you will go through a series of relationships until you find that love that is truly worthy of the love you deserve. And so to kind of expedite that process, the easiest thing to do is kind of shelving the idea that you need a relationship in your life right now. If you're not happy as you are, stop, discard the idea of I need a person, and look around and say, why am I not happy in this particular moment? What is going on in my life that I don't feel satisfied, I don't feel fulfilled, and I don't feel like I'm moving in a powerful direction? Focusing on self is the easiest way to know what you want and what you need. And self-love, again, nothing to do with remaining single. When you have self-love, if you accept somebody into your life and they start proving that they are not worthy of being there, you will reject them from your life, kind of exclude them from your life, or push them from your life until such time as that person grows, changes, evolves, and becomes worthy, or until the worthy person comes along. So self-love only means prepare yourself for a series of tester training wheel relationships as you're being asked to examine, is this person really the person I want to be with for the duration of any length of time? And we're very attached to the idea of permanence in relationships, even brief relationships, because they often teach us a great deal about ourselves, are very worthwhile having. So again, when somebody tells you you have to love yourself first, you are not being shamed. And you are not being told that because you've struggled, you don't get love. What they're saying is you have struggled because the type of love you're accepting is not worthy of you. So stop, examine your self-worth. You can date like crazy if you wish. You can sincerely, there's no need to withdraw to a convent or to a monastery in order to try and love yourself. You can continue to date, you continue to be in a relationship. It is just about having boundaries around self-treatment, because you know how you deserve to be treated, and that's all self-love is. Now, I got out some Romance Angels cards so we could go over a couple of these. Codependency, addictions are affecting your romantic life. Codependency it functions like an addiction because our brains react to love as if it is a chemical because it inspires a chemical response. It is not an insult. It genuinely isn't, and it's not about being a weak person, by the way. This is something that people get very, very confused about. If you were told, and I am the codependency queen, as I'm always saying, I was involved in a 20-year-long marriage, basically, that I should have left 10 years before I did. It became increasingly emotionally abusive towards me, and I was diminished and reduced, and I allowed it over and over and over again simply because I didn't know what I actually deserved, and so I wasn't standing up for my worth. The worse that man was treating me, the more I accepted it and assumed that I needed to become more and more perfect. So we lived in a spotless house. I did things like learn how to bake bread. Like, sincerely, the list of things I tried to do to make myself worthy of good treatment from this person would astound you. And I never really understood that the entire time that he was treating me worse and worse and worse, instead of having anything to do with me, it had to do with he was proving that he was not worthy of all the effort that I put into him, and I should have left. And I eventually did. But that is part of the reason people are drawn to me who may be suffering from a codependent dynamic. It is not about weakness. I am genuinely one of the strongest people you will ever meet. I've been through the poo, as have likely you, and I've overcome, and I am resilient, and I am strong, and I continue to peel myself up off the ground no matter what knocks me down. So I know my own strength, but I am prone to codependency. And it is because without going too far into it, I had a very, 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 very bad childhood. And I was neglected, I was abused, I was sexually abused, I was also physically abused, and I was also bullied. I am okay. It all worked out well. I am also so very strong that I just kept going on and on and on. I'm very proud of the ways in which I was strong, and I'm very forgiving of myself for the ways in which I had to learn how to do things that I had never seen before. So I didn't know how to have healthy relationships because I had never seen them, and because I was not a wanted child. I was always looking for love and validation and affirmation in the concept that somebody wanted me. If somebody wanted me, I just loved them so much because it was what I had wanted so much. As a child, as a developing person, as the thing that started to develop my sense of self and self-worth, it was denied by two parents who I was a great inconvenience to them, and they let me know it constantly. And I didn't grow up with, it's a very long story. Basically, what I'm talking about is because I had abandonment issues on top of that, I was constantly looking for the thing that had been missing from my childhood, thinking that it would complete me, that it would be the thing that would solve the kind of make the Rubik's Cube puzzle click into place and everything would align. That was never really the case. I needed to examine the ways in which I was wounded so that I could tell myself, well, it's not your fault that your parents didn't really want you. It's not your fault that I had to kind of go back and repair damage that had been done to me so that I could have a better view of myself and what I deserved. But I am a codependent person, meaning that I have to very consciously make sure I have my own passions, pursuits, friends, and I do need my own vocation because I can lose my identity to another person, because I am very prone to losing my identity to another person, meaning their goals, their achievements become more important to me than mine do, and that is a hallmark of codependency. So if you are codependent, don't panic. First of all, there is a way to heal that. The cure for codependence is independence. And that does not have anything to do with being single either. It doesn't. It just means that you still make your own decisions. It's a very, very good idea to have your own money, even if you're involved in a relationship. Make sure that you make independent decisions, that you're not always checking with somebody. And I notice this a lot with like people who are involved in relationships. They'll need to check in with their partner before they commit to doing something, rather than committing to doing something and then telling their partner, I decided to do this. Which there's a big difference, because one is about making sure that they are not conflicting with that person's schedule rather than setting their own. Now, occasionally you will be like, hey, I said I'd go to the movies with so-and-so, and then it turned out we had a different commitment and I needed to break that off, and that's an entirely different kettle of fish. But codependency is where you no longer function autonomously. And so the way to cure codependency is to make autonomous decisions. And then, kind of discuss things with your partner, but you're not giving them the power of decision, and you don't need their input before you can make a decision. It is about maintaining individuality, your identity, and your own unique, not the individual pursuits, interests, passions, friendships. Doesn't mean you can't have friendships or interests or passions or pursuit in common, but you need ones that are separate in order to maintain your identity. So, codependency. If you are codependent and you believe you have met your twin flame and you are in separation, everybody who resonates with that knows that there is the worst, most dysphoric feelings surrounding separation. I was talking to a client earlier about how at first it feels like you're going to die, and her response was, or you wish that you would. That's not a normal reaction to having a relationship withdraw from your life. That's where having your own sense of self comes in as well, that even if somebody leaves, at least you still have you and you know you can carry on. If you've had a breakup and you were laid completely low by it, you became too intertwined with that relationship. And again, that is not a criticism, it's an observation that gives you the information you might need to have a better experience in your next relationship. And dependency is slightly different than addiction. Dependency means that you feel like you need something, and addiction is a form that you don't have power over it. You need to go through a prescribed set of circumstances and behaviors in order to break free of it. Most addictions, they transfer the need of something onto something else. People who have had addictive and behaviors and been in recovery groups quite frequently will have what's called a transference relationship. It's why people in recovery are asked to spend a year alone or single, so that their sobriety is completely within the realm of their control. They have a good relationship with self, they've rebuilt their sense of self, and they are able to go forth with themselves, because the only person who can maintain sobriety is yourself. But people who are addictive are exceptionally prone to dependency and can be prone to codependent relationships. It's why sponsors need to be of a gender or an orientation that you're very unlikely to be attracted to or romantically attracted to your sponsor in addiction programs. And I am not in an addiction program. I am codependent, but I am not an addict. And there is a very slight difference. It means that I can recognize codependency and simply set about taking different steps, doing different behaviors in order to have a different result. Addicts they can very much lose the ability to just commit to that and do it. Codependents usually are able to. They're able to recognize, even if they don't feel it quite yet, because it very much functions like a drug, even if they're not able to recognize that, like, hey, I'm codependent, they will understand, I feel worse than I should after a breakup. I am unable to leave this relationship even though I can recognize all of the ways in which it is not meeting my needs. Using myself as an example again, and I'm only laughing because it's a little bit absurd, but I was not allowed to have emotions around my ex-husband. I wasn't allowed to have negative emotions, which included crying, which included any type of processing of anything other than a positive emotion. And I now recognize that that's a form of abuse, like where you become angry with someone for them having what you consider an inconvenient emotion. I didn't recognize it at the time because it came from my formative experience as well. It had been the story of my entire life. It was starting to really, really, really endanger my mental and emotional well-being. And I still couldn't leave. Like, I was having to stuff myself in closets just to cry about something. And I still didn't realize this is toxic, this is going to kill me eventually. Eventually I did, and eventually I did leave, but it is part of the reason I am still single, is that, and I'm not currently dating, because I'm not interested in having a relationship with anybody but me until such time as I make sure that cannot happen to me again. It was a very toxic situation that I should have left behind, but I didn't, because I could no longer see a world vision that included me without that other person. And that's a hallmark of codependency. But you can leave and you can change, and you will have to prepare for some of the more difficult periods afterwards. Very frequently when leaving a codependent relationship, people will meet another person and experience what is basically transference. They will transfer all of that need, all of that feeling of love onto another person. And we don't know somebody in the beginning of a relationship. The first 6 months of any relationship is all about fantasy and projection. You basically project onto them what you wish to see. We can't know someone in a short amount of time. We simply can't. So we have to take the time for somebody to no longer be on their best behavior, to find out what they're like when they argue, to find out what they're like when things are not going their way, or they're not trying to please you, to try and secure a relationship. And that's not talking about partners being evil or anything. We all do that. Everybody's on their best behavior for the first 6 months of a relationship. So in the first 6 months, outside of some cosmic bonds, which are rare, outside of some cosmic bonds, it's very difficult to truly know a person, so it's good not to commit. And another hallmark of codependency is overcommitment and easy commitment. If you've been involved with somebody for 4 weeks and suddenly you're talking about moving in together, or if you like get engaged after a month, that's a codependent behavior, because if you have a strong sense of self, you would understand there's no urgency. There's truly no urgency to be with that person. Even if you're happy, joyful, in love, everything's glorious when that person is there, you still have enough personal happiness in the life that you built that centers on self, which is not about being selfish. It's about having a feeling of self-worth and self-respect. You don't have such a desperate need-based love is codependency. You don't have such a desperate need to have somebody beside you that you will start throwing caution to the wind. And I do see this with clients sometimes, where they will bring forth they'll have the intellectual knowledge, but they can't marry it with the emotional knowledge, where you'll tell somebody, you're moving pretty quickly, maybe slow your roll there, and they will always have a set of reasons and circumstances why this is an exception to that rule. Just as when I needed to leave my husband and I wouldn't, there was always a reason for me that I wouldn't. It had to do with, well, I can't leave now because of X factor, that factor, the other factor. And it was frequently about things that my son needed. And this is in no way his fault, my choices are my own. But he was the reason sometimes for what I was reaching for why I couldn't leave. So if you find yourself overcoming logical knowledge about what constitutes a healthy emotional relationship, and you're trying to make an exception to it so that you can have that person closer to you more quickly than is advisable, that is one of the red flags of codependency. And in fact, pay attention to the red flags is my next. The signs are cautioning you. Listen, if you've got a history of codependency, understand again, it comes from formative damage. This is not a character flaw. It forms because of usually the atmosphere in which you grew up in. And you can't emulate something you've never seen before. So if you are surrounded by unhealthy and codependent relationships, you are primed to repeat that pattern. We do what we see. We do what we are surrounded by. We have to seek out the knowledge to do something differently. So pay attention to the red flags, including the ones that come up around yourself. Don't abandon all your friendships when you meet somebody. Don't abandon your pursuits. Don't abandon eating the foods that you like. That was one of the things that finally kind of started making an impression on me, is that I realized at a certain point that I happen to love coconut. I love coconut cream pie. Now I'm vegan now, so I kind of don't ever eat it, but I realized at one point that I hadn't had any for 8 years because my husband didn't like coconut. And so I stopped having my favorite dessert because he didn't like it as well. That is one of the things when you're surrendering the things you know about yourself in deference to your partner. And in the wake of a breakup, one of the ways that you can tell you're recovering is that you will find yourself doing something that you couldn't do because the other person didn't like it. Quite frequently, I find it to be with Indian food. I had a bunch of, when I lived in a different state, I would meet up with a particular set of girlfriends to go out for Indian food because none of our spouses liked it. But in that instance, we were going out to get the food that we wanted, knowing that we could never convince our partner to go. If you have given up a great many things that you love because they don't fit with what your partner likes, but you're always doing what your partner likes, that's a hallmark of codependency, and that's a red flag. Overcommitment in too short of a time frame is a red flag. Needing a relationship, being willing to excuse things in somebody that they don't fit the criteria of what a fitting partner would be. And quite often it is like meeting somebody who's committed to somebody else and making all kinds of excuses about why you should be involved with that person. Now, not all third-party situations are equal, and I'm not in any way scolding, shaming, or judging anybody on this. But in most instances, if somebody is committed to somebody else, that should be one of the areas where it's like, well, that's not, like, they're not honoring a commitment to somebody already, so what would they do with a commitment to me? That's a red flag as well. And sometimes the answers will be, listen, this is complicated and there's a lot more going on there than appears on first glance, lady. And there are instances where it's like, no, that was a legitimate. Sometimes relationships are dead and people are still involved in them, and people get involved in third-party situations. But there should be a progression towards leaving upon committing to the other person. And then I have children. Your love life is being affected by children. This card never ever means that. Or, okay, well, it rarely means that. It's about formative damage. Inner child work is your formative damage. We have needs when we are born, and nobody gets a perfect set of parents, but some people don't get their needs met at all. And it leaves them with these kind of gaping wounds within. And at first, what we do is we go towards somebody else with this, like, I have this, can you heal it? Will you heal it with your love? When you don't get the love that you need as a child, if you carry that forth into adult relationships, need-based love is codependency, it becomes a codependent dynamic. Meeting your own needs first, which is talking to yourself about your worth, what you deserve, recognizing your positive and your negative traits is an important thing, and not for shaming, but in order to try and improve them. As I'm always using as examples, I say I have a bad temper, and I kind of don't. I have a wonderful temper until, like, I get pushed that little bit too far, and then I have the worst temper you've ever seen. Like, there should be a crater in the earth every time something, like, really sets me off, because I have an explosive temper. And I've been working on it my whole life, and I always will, and I've made tremendous strides in it, and I'm actually quite proud of all the progress that I've made with it. But the other thing for me is impatience, and impatience is another hallmark of codependency, because control factors, control issues, which are usually related to anxiety, are also about codependency. You are dependent on knowing outcomes in order to feel safe. When, if you trust yourself, if you have a good relationship with self, you trust yourself to figure out what you need to as things arise. Free yourself, it's time to take back control of your life, and that's exactly what I was just talking about. You don't need to be able to know the outcomes. You don't need to be able to figure out the solutions before the problem ever even arises. What you need to be able to do is to trust in your own ability to meet the needs of the moment, and that will free you from the need to control everything around you. If you are of a controlling nature, you are seeking safety. You are seeking safety from an exterior force when you need it from an interior sense of self. I have healing family issues. Your love life benefits as you forgive your parents. This, again, not a well-worded card, but it really is about if you meet the needs that were not met when you were a child, as yourself, which can be encouraging yourself, telling yourself that your looks, your personality, your abilities are all what they need to be for you to be you, and you are right as you are. That is one of the ways that you can correct bad parenting. And that is healing family issues, and that is how your love life benefits as you forgive your parents. Forgiving is not necessarily even about them, it's about you. It's about recognizing a situation, rectifying it, and leaving the energy behind so it does not define your reality in the now. Because the energy that we live in is the energy that we attract. I have forgiving and learning. As you release and heal the past, you experience more love in your present moments. And that's exactly what that is. The energy that you are existing in, you are vibing in right now, vibrations, kind of frequencies, we attract others in that frequency. As you experience more happiness and healthier moments now, you will attract more and more happiness and health. If you're constantly looking back to the wounds of the past and saying this wasn't fair and that wasn't fair, and you're constantly looking backwards and digging up that emotion, which empaths have emotional memory, and so the emotions come back up, you're creating that energy in the here and now and kind of dragging the past into the present. And that, again, is not about shaming. It's not a choice. It's a need to heal. It's a need to heal. Frequently, we look towards other relationships as painkillers. Painkillers are not healing. Solace is not healing. Healing, unfortunately, does not feel all that awesome sometimes, but when something is healed, it no longer needs a painkiller. And that's why looking within to heal the wounds within, focusing on self-love, is what will give you the ability to overcome a need-based love and a looking for solace in a relationship rather than looking for love, companionship, and resonance. All right, you deserve love. You are lovable. When you know that you are lovable, truly know it, you will not accept poor treatment in the name of love. If somebody is hurting you in the name of love, that is abuse. Now, everybody screws up sometimes, but if it is habitual, if it is something they will not overcome, if they are constantly putting you down or controlling you, or you can't do anything right. I'm going to use myself as an example again. It was like everybody was afraid to make a mistake around my husband because he took his moods out on other people. And so it was also about not being able to appropriately shut that down. Because I became afraid of his moods, I wouldn't shut them down. I wouldn't protect myself. You are lovable. Know that you deserve to be treated in a loving manner. And nothing is ever going to be perfect, but the bulk of any relationship should honor your needs and respect them as you should honor and respect another person's. Love yourself first. Your self-respect makes you more romantically attractive. The point in all of this, the point in self-love is, again, you're not being scolded and you're not being shamed, but you will attract a person who recognizes your strength and your worth and resonates on that same vibration when you have that. Let go of control issues, allow the situation to unfold naturally. This is the hard one because control is about fear. And fear is one of the things to overcome for security, and security is one of the things that is involved in self-love. If you love yourself, you believe in yourself, and you feel secure in your ability to overcome. So that's kind of what that's about as well. Try to release the need to know all the details. Try to release the need to have things work exactly in the way that you need them to for you to feel safe. Just know that when you have you, you are safe. You can handle this. We have let your friends help you, ask for and accept support from others. Hey, this is about the best way to form reciprocal relationships is friendships, because we're not looking for things to affirm us at the same level. In friendships, there's not as much pressure brought to bear on friendships. They have a tendency to be more give and take, and reciprocity is again one of the cures for codependency, because codependency has a tendency to be very lopsided, particularly in empath and narcissist relationships. Empaths giving and giving, and narcissists taking and taking. Have good friendships and you will end up with better relationships altogether. And how do you meet your friends? You have interests, you have passions, you have pursuits, or you meet people who are like-minded and have affinity with you. And then worth waiting for, divine timing is at work in your love life. So what the heck does that card even mean? Because everybody cringes when they hear the phrase divine timing. Divine timing is nothing about a long dated time. It means that when you have found this ability to believe in yourself, believe in your ability to love yourself, to know what you are worth and what you are worthy of receiving, that's when your great love comes to you. And until such time as that is part of what you've achieved and are striving towards, you will have a series of relationships that are not the true soulmate, true great love relationship that you have. I actually know someone who believes that they've met their soulmate, but they're both like raging alcoholics and like the state of disrepair in their physical and emotional lives surrounding their connection. That's codependency. Soulmates can meet and become codependent, but a soulmate connection, a true soulmate connection, does not diminish you. It helps you evolve, it helps you grow, and it helps you heal. Love is not punishing or unkind or destructive. And then I have just a couple of more. I have attachment with adjacent possibilities and patient. Attachment. Attachment to outcomes is another one of those catchphrases that is not very well explained, so I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to break it down. When people, readers, any psychics, any healers tell you you have to release attachments to all outcomes, this does not mean you are not going to get what you want. It doesn't mean that. It means that control factors are around, I am attached to a particular outcome. Control is fear-based. The opposite energy of love is not anger or hate, it's fear. And so attachment to outcomes is a fear-based reaction to something. If you are not afraid, if you really believe that what is meant for me is going to come to me because I am worthy of it, the shape it takes is not something you feel the need to control. Release your attachment to outcomes. And that is not the same thing as saying you can't have the person you want, you can't have the job that you want, you can't have the location that you want, you can't have what you want, which is how people receive it. And all releasing attachment means is understand that you want this for a reason, because you know yourself, or you respect yourself, and you love yourself, and believe that it will come to you as it is meant to. And if the world around you is not reflecting that, trust that if it is meant for you, it will come to you, and you want what is meant for you when you are healthy. Adjacent possibilities is also being open to the universe bringing things to you in the form that you're meant to have them. Sometimes that might be a different person, but if you hear that and your immediate reaction is, no, I only want this one person, that is something to examine, because that is putting all of your weight for happiness, for fulfillment on one specific person, and people are fallible and they usually have their own work to do. Be open to adjacent possibilities, things coming in a form and a shape that you can't conceive of, and that is also about releasing control. And then patience is the one that can be one of the more difficult energies to understand and to inhabit. Patience is not about waiting. It's not. For some reason, we think whenever we hear the word patience, it's like, well, I better bring a book because I'm going to be here for most of my life. That's not what patience is about. Patience is peace. When you are not constantly looking, what's coming next, what's coming next. If you're in a moment in your life and you're enjoying it, that is patience. It is being satisfied with the passage of time and believing that what is meant to you will come to you in the time that it is meant to. And that has nothing to do with waiting, because the time that is meant for you could be 5 minutes from now. But you're not looking, oh, if it's 5 minutes from now, then I've got to get to 5 minutes from now, completely disregarding the worth of the here and now. And that's all that patience is trying to find the worth in the here and now, what is available to you right at this very moment. And there's a very particular reason that you want to do that. If you are always looking to something that you do not have yet, thinking that that is the thing that will make you happy, that is not how happiness works. Nothing can come to you that will make you happy, because anything that can come to you can leave you. That is why happiness has to come from within, because you will always have your relationship to yourself. And it doesn't mean that something, an event, a person, an activity like that can inspire joy in you, but that's not the same thing as being made happy. Happiness, contentment, and peace, patience is peace, and the releasing control is patience with peace. Things might happen in exactly the way that you've been envisioning them, but you have the ability to release this strict and rigid demand around it, and you relax into the energy of, until such time as I have the thing that I want, and there isn't even one thing wrong with wanting things, not even one. You can enjoy the circumstances of your life even when you don't have the thing that you are hoping for. Replace the word want with hope, and you will have a much better existence. I hope someday I will have a true love. I hope someday that the person that I love will heal enough to come to me. I hope someday to get the job that will bring more abundance into my life. I hope for these things. Want has that need in it as well. So because language is imperfect, many of the times that we're saying the word want, what we actually mean is hope. If you can inhabit a peaceful and content energy in any particular moment, all becomes possible, and there are no energetic blockages created by that kind of friction. And again, you're not being blamed when you're told there's an energetic blockage. What you're being told is try to reset your energetic vibe, because you deserve everything. Everything that you want or are hoping for can come to you if you can believe in you. It's not even believing in the divine. It's not even believing in holistic healing or spirituality or tarot or witchcraft or anything. All of that is about believing in self, which can include seeking out the answers that are right for you, which can include holistic healing or spirituality or witchcraft or tarot. It is a very slight difference. It's trust in yourself. Love yourself. Be content within yourself. And know that if you are hoping that love will come and add to your life, that's all self-love is about. That's all self-love is about. When you're being told you need to love yourself first, it is not saying that you're not loving yourself. It is saying that you are not putting enough emphasis on self, on what I truly would like to have around me because I know I deserve it. And that's all that means. So all of this was really just kind of a tarot talk in response to a 30-second TikTok video I saw in which this woman was livid. She was livid, like, stop blaming people for their struggles. Nobody is blaming you for struggling. But because that phrase gets used without any explanation of what constitutes the struggle, what can you do to help yourself overcome that struggle so that your path is cleared and you can flow easily into all that you are hoping to receive, it does sound like blame, and it does sound like shaming, and it does sound like the universe is sending me to my room because I've been bad. Far, far from it. The universe is saying, please love yourself as we love you. And that will open your heart to hope, and it will fill you with peace, and it will give you patience, and you will receive. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that, and I didn't end up swearing, but I'm still not going to put ads on this. I hope this helps somebody, and I hope that it doesn't offend anybody. If it does, you have my sincerest apologies. Nobody's telling you you're broken. Nobody's telling you you're wrong, and nobody is telling you that you're damaged or that your struggles make you unlovable. All they're trying to tell you is, please see yourself as the divine sees you. You are worthy of every good thing. Accept that, and know it will come to you. It will come to you. And part of the way you filter out the things that are not meant for you is by self-love. Take care. Be well. I'll see you next time.